Evening. We've got lots of catching up to do with this individual who joins us in the studio this evening. The president of Africa Mayu movement, Floyd Shivambu, is with us in the studio this evening. A very good evening to you, sir. Welcome to Metro FM Talk. It's the first time we have a conversation since the formation of the Africa Mayu movement. Welcome.
Evening, Faith, and evening to listeners of Metro FM. We haven't spoken in a very long time.
Absolutely. And lots to talk about, obviously, that is on the table this evening. We've got to get through quite a bit from the Africa Mayu Restoration Manifesto, which I actually took the liberty of going through.
Oh, yes.
So we have to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit about that from the journal that you wrote today, looking at addressing poverty as well, which we'll talk a little bit about as well.
Oh, yes. So,
but first we need to do a catch-up. And we need to do a catch-up on where things have gone and to where you are right now, because we have not spoken. So let's go back. So in order for us to go forward, let's go back in time. And I want us to take us back in time to when Youth League convener Mzwandile Masina makes an announcement that you had been expelled. Obviously, you said on Facebook that you had not been expelled. In fact, let me repeat what you actually wrote on Facebook. I think it was in 2012, for example, or 2013. You said on Facebook, and I'm quoting what you wrote on Facebook, you find it hilarious, speaking here about Mzwandile Masina, who had made an announcement at the time that you had been expelled as the ANC Youth League spokesperson. You saying that you find it hilarious since you gave away your membership of the Zuma ANC and the Zuma Youth League. I'm going to quote you. You said, it is directionless, possibly the most corrupt and openly neoliberal political formation that will never solve South Africa's problems. Fast forward to July 2013. The EFF is formed where you were deputy president. Then last year, you leave the EFF to join Umkhonto weSizwe of the very same Jacob Zuma you said was directionless when he led the Jacob Zuma ANC. Then afterwards, you leave the very same Umkhonto weSizwe. And then I want to quote also what you said when you were exiting Umkhonto weSizwe. In fact, it was during another press briefing that you spoke about this. And I want to quote this. You said, President, you said Umkhonto weSizwe is not an honest organization, that it is a family business of President Zuma for narrow benefit of him and the family. You also accuse Jacob Zuma of not necessarily of issues around the political movement itself, but you say it is a family business and it is an organization that's only focused on family benefit. Now, if I understand, you ANC Youth League, you say that the Jacob Zuma of the African National Congress is directionless. Yes. Then you go and you join the same guy who you accuse of being directionless, and then you become the Secretary General of the political party that you accused him of being directionless. Then you leave the very same political party, and then you say that his organization is not honest and is just a family business. By the sounds of it, with how much you've accused this individual that you follow, does it not then get perceived by South Africans that you, Mr. Shivambu, are the one who is directionless?
No, I would think, Faith, instead of relying on social media posts, you would have given yourself time as well to do deeper research on the very substantial policy perspectives and diagnosis of the political conditions that obtained in the ANC. I've written a lot of perspectives from 2012, leave 2013. In 2012, I'd already begun to write about the diagnosis of the political crisis and the ideological misdirection of the African National Congress. Even before that is when we began to call for the formation of a different organization outside of the ANC. Maybe for ease of reference, so in the founding manifesto of the EFF, there is 15 diagnostics that basically characterizes the crisis of the African National Congress at that time, to say historically it has attained political power, but it has not been able to mutate that into economic emancipation and freedom, and there is no foreseeable possibility that it will do so. And that is the political reasons which we publicly spoke about in all the interviews. Leave the social media post in terms of
post, because you wrote that post, Mr. Shivambu. It was your post. It was not another post. It was you who wrote this.
It can be the basis of.
But you wrote this.
No, it can
that is your thinking, not my thinking.
I want to. I'm not disowning it, by the way. Yeah, I'm not disowning it. I'm saying that go a bit deeper so that you have a far much more deeper understanding of context, so that, because if you are just going to only rely on sound bites without looking into the context of it, So there's a lot of perspectives that we can share with you as well, so that when we talk next time, you are able to contextualize it as to where did we come from when we said that the ANC is not an instrument of revolutionary transformation in South Africa. And that is an objective analysis that I still stand by, that I made about the African National Congress in 2012 and 2013, that led to the formation of the Economic Freedom Fighters, whose perspectives we got to shape in terms of what got to happen. And now, before the formation of Umkhonto weSizwe, in 2023 October, we had a discussion with President Zuma, like before it was publicly announced, as to a possibility of uniting all the black political parties outside of the ANC to pursue a different revolutionary agenda, because there was admittance even on his part that the path that the ANC has taken, including during his presidency, was not sustainable. There has to be revolutionary politics. And then let us then look into unification of the progressive forces into one. And then we then agreed that let us go and contest elections separately, EFF separately, UDM separately, ATM separately, MK separately. And then we'll come back into discussion as to what happens after that. And then, you know what were the outcomes of elections. MK got 14%, EFF 9%, the ANC 40%. And then, of course, I was part of the negotiation process as to whether they should be constituting of a black government, because I was strongly, and I'm still strongly opposed to constituting of a white government, even partially. I totally opposed the inclusion of the Democratic Alliance into government due to the historical posture and politics of the Democratic Alliance and what they represent in the politics of South Africa. And when objectively we noticed the struggles and the foundational challenges that Umkhonto weSizwe was confronted with at formative stages. When President Zuma spoke to me after the general elections to say that, please come and assist us in Umkhonto weSizwe, I said I will voluntarily do so, because this is an organization that has been voted by 2.5 million South Africans. And we cannot have a wobbly organization that doesn't have clear systems in place, doesn't have an ideological character or direction. And that is when I volunteered. And I actually said that I must not be given any senior responsibility. Let me just come and volunteer to contribute to the stabilization of the organization, because I've got some insight and knowledge of how organizations are founded. I founded one in 2013 called Economic Freedom Fighters. And that is the role that I want to play in Umkhonto weSizwe. And I played a very significant and necessary role in terms of what got to happen. And it was the very important and necessary decision to take, that despite the fact that there are internal subjective challenges that characterize and define Umkhonto weSizwe, it has got more than 2.5 million people who say that this is a political party that we believe in terms of the politics of Umkhonto weSizwe. And of course, out of objective assessment, we got to also realize that whilst there was intention to unite the progressive forces, there is also the subjective interests of President Zuma and of course of the family members who want to utilize the organization for different reasons and purposes. And that is the observation that we made. And there is nothing wrong with making objective observations based on the current realities. So if I see you today in a sober state of mind, you are sober today. But if I see you tomorrow under the influence of alcohol, you are drunk tomorrow. That is what happens in terms of how you observe realities. You don't say that because I saw you sober yesterday, every day I see you, you are sober. If I saw someone drunk yesterday, every time you see them, you think that this person is drunk. You analyze reality and politics based on the obtaining circumstances. And that is what exactly we did, and there's nothing wrong with that.
So you maintain that Umkhonto weSizwe is a Stokvel?
Look, they are subjective. Look, they are subjective elements that are defining the MK. I thought we were going to speak about Mayu here, but
no,
let me just
speak. We're going to speak about it.
The subjective elements that I witness in relation to Umkhonto Wesizwe, I can say this because I said it in the meetings of Umkhonto Wesizwe. It's not like I'm not talking about it outside. There's no consistency in discipline of the organization, one, but two, you can have organizational decisions that are taken over family dinner table and they become binding decisions. And that is not a proper organizational culture that must be promoted in any of the organizations that claim to represent the people of South Africa. Organizations must have proper systems and organizational decision-making processes internally and must be held accountable, must be able to give account and reasons for all the decisions that they take in terms of how they handle their own issues. But Umkhonto Wesizwe has got the limitation that there can be a huge meeting where everyone else contributes, but a decision is taken over a family dinner table of President Zuma and the children, and sometimes for subjective, sometimes even corrupt intentions and purposes.
Well, let's talk a little bit about also what happened during your press briefing. And you were talking here about Mayu Africa movement or Africa Mayu movement.
Yes.
And you said this, and I want to be able to quote this. You say, we know that the stage that Africa Mayu movement is at in 4 months is where the EFF was supposed to be in year 8 or year 9. Now, when I read that particular statement that you had articulated during your press briefing in Midrand yesterday, I thought to myself, but hang on, Floyd. In year 8 or 9, you were the deputy president of the Economic Freedom Fighters. So if the Economic Freedom Fighters did not achieve their objective in year 8 or 9, you are partly to blame. In fact, as the leadership, the deputy president of the Economic Freedom Fighters, the blame is on you if the EFF failed because you were deputy president at the time.
I don't think we understood the context of that as well. Let us assist again. The one is to make an observation. By the way, when we began the consultation process, I didn't anticipate that there will be a massive response and support of Africa Mayu movement. I thought that we're just going to listen to the people. I thought that even the number of volunteers, actually my estimation was that even if it's 2,000 or 3,000 volunteers, will be able to go ahead. The objective observation, which in the press conference yesterday, I said in our conversation with the leaders of Africa Mayu now, who majority of were foundational leaders of the EFF here in Johannesburg, the former regional chairperson, the former regional secretary, former provincial secretaries in the Western Cape, in a variety of other provinces, leaders of the EFF, they say that the pace that we got to move with and then the structures that we got to establish in all corners of South Africa within 4 months is what the EFF could only achieve in 8 months in terms of what happened. And remember that in the process of establishing an organization, in 8 years, yes, in 8 years, and that is a fair observation because Mayu now, both in terms of membership, in terms of presence in all provinces, in all the 54 regions, because we've demarcated the 54th region in Mpumalanga, and in all the 205 local municipalities, the 8 metropolitan municipalities, we've got solid presence of credible leaders and activists across board from different political parties, and a lot of them who have never been active in political organizations. I'll give a simple example as well that the EFF in year 8, even now, has never had any institutionalized support from any organization. There's never been a union or even a church organization of 50 members or 3 members who say that as a church, as an institution, we support the EFF. Mayu foundationally has got a union with hundreds of thousands of members, which represents EPWP workers, which says that we associate with Mayu in terms of the programs and the political agenda that's in pursuit
but
of.
Floyd,
there is many.
Shivambu,
No, let's take it through.
Any failure of the EFF is directly related to you. You are the if the EFF failed, you are the reason why the EFF failed because you were the deputy president at the time of the Economic Freedom Fighters. You can't remove yourself from the EFF's failure.
I don't think the discussion is about the failure or not. We just observing objective reality.
If there was no religious leaders because of you.
No, we'll give you observing objective reality that this is what obtained there and this is what is obtaining here. It was not to say it's a failure measurement in terms of, I think the approach and understanding is a far much more different.
No, the approach is exactly that. You were talking about the objective observation. I'm listening to you talk about objective observation. So, the objective observation is that if it was limited in the EFF, it's because of you.
Let me get a simpler example, maybe that maybe you will not on in terms of how you'll understand the conditions. It's someone can say that I grew plants, or I was involved in agriculture elsewhere, and then this is how the plants grew in a slower pace and everything as there and then. But ultimately, I thought they did what they were supposed to do. And then someone says that, no, I did the same project elsewhere, and this is the pace that they grew in. It doesn't mean that other person has failed. That was the assessment. The assessment was to give an objective observation that EFF achieved whatever it achieved, and it was an achievement, by the way, even during that period. We had lots of celebrations, 10th anniversary and FNB Stadium and all of those things. It was not compared to anything. There was no Mayu at that time. And we're making an observation now that this movement is growing faster and much more stable and has got institutionalized and organizational support, something that they didn't obtain in the other organization that they served in. I don't think it's an issue, measurement of failure.
No, it's an issue of leadership, because it means as though at that other organization you were a leader. In the previous organization where it did not achieve, you were a leader. In this organization where you're a leader, you've achieved. So what the common denominator between the EFF and Mayu is you. You are the common denominator.
So I will give you a very simple illustration about the politics of that as well, so that it's discussed within a political context. And I didn't want to talk about all of those issues, but you're insisting that we must talk about the MK and EFF. Now, in the founding manifesto of the economic freedom fighters, who defined the EFF that time as a movement, by the way, not as a political party, but the president of the EFF or the leader of the EFF wanted to treat the EFF as a political party and treats it like that there must not be any other components of the organization, even when there are resolutions to establish students, youth, women. He wants to run a political party as just one institution. And of course, that is leadership practice as opposed to leadership theorization and conceptualization as to how a movement is built to achieve certain objectives and mandate in a certain context. And that is what we dealt with. And then, of course, in terms of organizational practice and theory, you always subject yourself to the collective decisions that you believe that maybe this is a different approach to achieve the same objective. And we observing that the pace and the speed and the direction, the form at which the EFF grew with is nowhere close comparable to the space, the speed, the pace, the form and content at which Mayu is growing. I think your understanding and conceptualization of this is very simplistic.
I don't think it's simplistic. I'm just thinking that I'm using the words that you're saying. But let's talk a little bit about politics. Let's talk about the political discourse, right?
Let's talk about Mayu as well.
We can listen. You and I've got to talk about it a lot. But let's talk a little bit about the fact that you've got 4 political parties under your belt right now. You've got African National Congress, the ANC Youth League. You've got Economic Freedom Fighters. You've got Umkhonto weSizwe, and then you've got Africa Mayibuye movement under your belt, right? For political parties that you have played a pivotal role in. Others may perceive this as being somebody who does not know how to make a choice and stick with it. In other words, when you're looking at this, you're not able to commit to a political party. And every time it doesn't work, it seems as though you move. And then this does not work, and then it seems as though you move. And back to Africa Mayibuye, how do you expect voters to trust you if you've moved around so much? How do you expect voters to say, I've got a home with Africa Mayibuye movement and the leader of Africa Mayibuye movement, my vote is safe as a South African, if you yourself have moved 4 times?
So I thought that in the characterization of the 4 political parties as well, you're going to speak about the politics and the ideological posture that I've held throughout those 4 political parties. there's proof, there's evidence of the views that I held in all those 4 political parties. It's not a secret. I got to lead the policy discussions and wrote the document called the Clarion Call to Economic Freedom Fighters, which was the discussion document and the primary resolution of the 24th National Congress of the African National Congress Youth League. I led the process of drafting and finalizing the politics in the founding manifesto of the Economic Freedom Fighters. The current constitution, the politics in the current constitution of Umkhonto weSizwe, I played a central role in writing that. I led the process to draft the Restoration Manifesto of Africa Mayu movement. Show me one inconsistency politically and ideologically, because all of those perspectives speak about the redress of the imbalances of the past, speak about decolonization, speak about reclamation of the land, speak about provision of free education, speaks about massive industrialization to create millions of jobs, speaks about economic sovereignty, not only of the South African economy, but of the African continent and all Africans in the African diaspora. So the consistency has always been there. And the issues that we have observed, we did already give an observation as to what our analysis of the ANC was. And we did give a public observation as to what were the subjective weaknesses that characterized the EFF and of the MK. And now we are here in Africa Mayu movement still preaching the same gospel. We have never shifted a single inch on any ideological question.
You are preaching the same gospel, but in different churches. You keep moving churches. Your churches are never the same. One time you're in this church, then you're in this church.
Do you know, through servants of revolution, they appreciate that it's not about a vessel that you speak revolutionary politics in. It's about the message that you stand for. It's about the principle that you stand for. And you do not bend even when the organization that you serve in is now adopting or adapting to neoliberal mannerisms and wrong mannerisms or corrupt mannerisms that they get to define some of the formations that we served in. I took a decision that I do not want to be associated with organizations that officially or unofficially endorse or induct people in corruption and tenders in municipalities and all of those things there. I said that if this is a wave that defines this organization that I'm in, I'm pulling back. I cannot be part of this particular approach in terms of how we deal with these issues. But the consistency, even if you can use the most advanced AI tool to check the consistency, you will see that there is consistent revolutionary politics that we've always stood for, and we stand by even now, and we'll stand by until we achieve all the revolutionary objectives of our movement.
Well, we need to talk about this new movement, and we need to talk about its objectives. We need to talk about some of the plans of eradicating poverty, unemployment, as I said, all the objectives of Africa Mayu movement that is enlisted within the manifesto as well, in terms of how does it find expression in modern day South Africa. We've also got lots of your voice notes to take as well, but I do need to go pay some bills. We'll come back and talk.
Okay.